On today's Monday News Pod, the San Diego Padres get another series win against the rival Los Angeles Dodgers. Of course, it's not a rivalry, though, as you guys know. Breaking down the series, including the big starting pitching performances, people like Xander Bogaerts having big moments, Ha-Seong Kim's injury we got to talk about, Luis Arraez's walk-off on Friday, and also answering some of your comments and questions from the week. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Monday, May 13th. As always, I am your host, with sometimes occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Arraez. You may be familiar with my baseball-related work over at Just Baseball, where I write about and do stuff for them about not just the Padres, but general baseball stuff, including my new show, Baseball versus the World, which you can check out on my bio on Twitter if you want. Go check that out. It's a lot of fun. This week's going to be a fun one, too. Today's episode, though, guys, in terms of just me, thank you, as always, for tuning into Locked On Padres. We are your first team every day, available on all platforms, including YouTube, if you want to say hi to Tatis and Pac-Man, or whatever fit I'm rocking. Today, not much. Unfortunately, my Padres jacket is in the washer, and I wanted to record this podcast, so unfortunately we don't get that. But you know what? I have my hat right next to me. So you know what? We're putting on the hat because it was a lovely weekend in Padre land, ladies and gentlemen, defeating the Los Angeles Dodgers, winning 2 of 3 games. And so far, they have not lost a series to the Dodgers all year long. And I think that this was a great weekend that showcased the upside, once again, of the San Diego Padres, and once again showed you that the San Diego Padres just have had so many things this year. This is one of the things that we talked about last week on the show, which is that, yes, the record is frustrating, but it's too early to look at records, in my opinion, and instead look at the fact that there are so many areas from individual players to team standpoint, like hitting with runners and scoring position, that are already better than what they were last year. And this weekend showed you that there's some other potential for the things that weren't working well to get even better as time goes on. So, guys, we got a lot to talk about, so we're not going to waste too much longer. This episode is brought to you, though, by Prize Picks. Ladies and gentlemen, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for first deposit match up to $100. Thank you for DraftKings. Let's start with yesterday's game. As you guys always know, whenever we're doing a weekend series recap, we got to start with the most recent game. The Padres winning 4-0 over the Dodgers. Walker Buehler versus Yu Darvish. Talked on Friday with my guy Jeff Snyder about how this was the game that was a little bit weird because we don't know, and even he agreed that Walker Buehler, if he's like right, I do genuinely believe, and I know that there's probably going to be some people out there who think I'm doing Dodger loving or anything like that. But no, seriously, I think Walker Buehler is a tremendous talent, and he's coming off Tommy John surgery, though. So we don't know, hey, yeah, he had an okay start against the Marlins, but it's also the Marlins, and it was just an okay start. I don't think this means Buehler is going to be terrible for the rest of the year, and he will be a threat, I think, come playoff time or down the road in the regular season even, if he ever does get it right, which I think he will. He's just going to need time. He's coming back from Tommy John. 3 1/3 innings, giving up 3 earned runs on 5 hits, 2 walks, 2 Ks. He's just not fully all the way there, right? He's just not fully all the way there. But thank the Lord that our guy was all the way there. One Sir Yu Darvish having one of his more just prime vintage performances of the season. In this one, going 7 innings, only allowing 2 hits, no runs, only 1 walk, and striking out 7. His fastball looked pretty solid. He had 6 whiffs on his slider in this game, generated in total 19 whiffs, especially on some of his wipeout pitches. This is what's so fun about Yu Darvish, right? Is you don't know what he's going to finish you off with. Obviously, four-seam fastball, slider, sinker, that's kind of usually his sort of go-to repertoire, dare I say, but he's also got a knuckle curve he throws in there, a splitter, a curveball, a cutter, a sweeper. And then a pitch that he calls the Supreme, for people who might remember from a couple of years ago when he talked about that before the season started. He's amazing, and now has a minuscule 2.43 ERA. All the attention is on Dylan Cease, and rightfully so, because Dylan Cease has been a beast. But this is looking like the Yu Darvish, not from last year, but the year before, where, yes, the strikeout rate's down, but he's older, so it's okay. Instead, he's a guy that's not going to give too many easy passes, and he's going to go deep into games, and he'll be pretty efficient, throwing In this game, he actually does throw 101 pitches, and I loved how amped he was. After getting some strikeouts to end the inning, after walking, I believe, I forgot who it was that he walked, like Andy Pages in one inning, I think in the 6th inning, and then coming back with a strikeout, he was pumped. He needed this. It was great. His last 3 starts, this one against the Dodgers that I mentioned. Before that, against the Chicago Cubs, 5 innings, no earned runs, 1 walk, 5 Ks. In the game before that against the Reds, 5 innings, only 3 hits, no runs, no walks and 3 Ks, only 2 walks in his last 3 starts. The guy went on the IL and came back like a man on a mission. You gotta love Yu Darvish, and you gotta love this performance. As I tweeted out, a lot on my personal account. I love Yu Darvish when he is on and he's healthy, which is a big if, of course, as we always mention. There are few pitchers that I think have that, like, just that trust, I think, that Yu Darvish does. So he's been excellent for this team so far this year. And even before the injury and even before this last 3 stretch, he wasn't that bad. Like, he had some good games against the Giants. He had a good start against the Cardinals. Like, he's been okay this year, even if you want a little bit more. But to me, he has more than delivered everything that I was talking about preseason, which is when the guy's on, and not many people are better. And in terms of other highlights from this game, that's obviously the biggest, but I do want to give a shout out to this one stat that was shown on the broadcast, which is, like, I had a double take, ladies and gentlemen, like a big time double take on this one. So bear with me on this, but Padres starters have had 4 consecutive starts. So it's not just from this weekend, but 4 consecutive starts, allowing 2 or fewer hits across at least 5 innings. The first time in MLB that has happened since at least 1893. That is a wild stat. So shouts to Padres pitching. Obviously, we're going to get into some of the rest of the pitching performances this weekend, but they were awesome. This was not an offensive game, but we did get some highlights. Tatis hit an absolute nuke. Talked about this on Friday as well. And so did Jeff, that he loves to play against the Dodgers. And as you all know, I know the underlying stats. I get all that stuff. The guy is going to go nuclear at some point, and I'm glad that he did at least have this 1 home run this weekend. Even if he's been, every time it feels like he's going to go crazy, he seems to go in a little bit of a slump. So hopefully this kick starts that, but it's coming. We have to believe it's coming, right? Especially after last year, where we kept saying all year, oh, it's coming, and it didn't. So that's not going to happen 2 years in a row, right? He's not going to be underperforming, giving his peripherals 2 years in a row, right? So shouts to Tatis. Jake Cronenworth also getting in on the action. Really beautiful shot as well that someone posted. I was not familiar with this beforehand, but someone pointed out, he did point to this guy after the home run. It was Mother's Day. Shouts to all of you for Mother's Day from yesterday. Hope everyone had a nice holiday. Hope everyone's doing well. But if you're like Jay Cronenworth, he points to this guy because his mother had actually passed when he was 4. So shouts to Jay Cronenworth. That must have been an emotional kind of moment for him. And Jay Cronenworth, of course, continues to absolutely rake this year. Why? Because he's always had this capability, even if he's been on a steady decline. And frankly, maybe because he got engaged. Maybe the power of engagement. Now we just need the power of Manny Machado, the new dad power to kick in, I guess, right? But that's one of the runs, 2 of the runs that the Padres score in this game. They also get Luis Arraez does hit into a double play fielder's choice that allows Jackson Merrill to score. And then Xander Bogaerts hitting a home run, 439 feet. Absolutely clobbered it, by the way. Was it the hardest hit ball of the day? It was the... Oh, wow. It wasn't the hardest hit ball of the day. That just goes to show you, by the way, how good the Padres hitting was. 2 of the top 5 hardest hit balls going to Jay Cronenworth. 1 a home run, 1 a ground out that he got unlucky with. That got smoked to the second baseman at one point. But home run from Xander Bogaerts, 900 expected batting average, also 30 out of 30 ballparks. So this was not some lucky home run. And I do want to bring that up because last year, some of Xander Bogaerts' home runs did have a lot of those. Yeah, this was only a home run in like 7 out of 30 ballparks. So I just want to show that out. Can he get going? Maybe. I don't know. I hope he does. I hope this kick starts him the same way I was mentioning with Tatis, except unlike Tatis, there's no underlying stats that suggest he's going to be amazing. Some other things happened in this game. Max Muncy robbing Profar again. He did it in Saturday's game, in the second game I'm going to mention too. And then later on, Profar goes for a bunt, and Muncy makes a good play on that. Doesn't get him out, but shouts to Max Muncy, just randomly becoming an excellent defensive player. But folks, we got more. We got a whole lot more, not just from this game, but the rest of the weekend series as well. Lots to get into, but we've been talking a lot, and I want to just take a second to talk to you about one of our sponsors, and that is the good folks over at Policy Genius. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the thing. You need life insurance. You do. Duh. Obviously, we all live, don't we? And when it comes to Policy Genius, they are the leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. And I mean, that's very important. You're going to need all that stuff. I'm not super smart. I barely get insurance. I barely understand what money even is. I mean, I get what money is, but it's complicated, man. Look, it's complicated out here. And when it comes to Policy Genius, you can compare your options with other top companies, and their team of licensed experts are on hand to help guide you through it. Like if you're someone like me who needs a lot of help when it comes to these things, talk to a team of award-winning agents who will walk you through the process step by step. And like I said, you can easily compare to every top insurer in just a few clicks, which is awesome. And they give you unbiased support from their team of licensed experts. So go check out Policy Genius. Check life insurance off your to-do list, guys. Come on, let's just get that out of the way. You know what I'm saying? Head to policygenius.com/lockedonmlb. Go check it out. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we are back here at the Locked On Padres podcast, your team every day, free and available on all platforms. Let's continue. We have no time to waste, folks. No time to waste. Let's keep going. And here's what I want to say. Some drama in this Padres game. At first, Ha-Seong Kim gets hit on the wrist, and he was in a whole lot of pain. Thankfully, shortly after the game ended, it was said by Jeff Sanders and many others from the San Diego Tribune, Kevin Acee as well, that the test was negative, which is a really good sign. Yeah, I mean, hopefully Ha-Seong Kim is not going to be out for too long. He's been an excellent defender at the very minimum. I know that is, there are some conglomerate of Padres fans that think that Kim can be a little bit overrated. I think that that's more of a question on how you feel about things like WAR and wins above replacement. If you think that they value defense too much, I think gets really complicated. But in terms of that, just friendly reminder, Kim is fourth on the Padres in terms of FWAR. And I will say he has regressed a bit. He's regressed to what his offense was 2 years ago, where he's just maybe average. He's currently got a 98 WRC+, but even still, the defense is electric. So that just goes to show you, like, even when he's not, right, the fact that he can still provide defense is amazing. And then Tatis was hit on a 3-1 pitch. I don't think this was intentional. I know what people are saying, like a 3-1 pitch and you throw like an inside fastball like that. And I know Mike Schilt has voiced, wanting to get back and not wanting teams to kind of do that, that they won't tolerate that stuff, because you've got a lefty coming up next. To me, though, I just think these teams play hard, and I don't want to immediately retreat to you're doing it intentionally. I didn't like some of the people who were like, you got to hit him next. And it's like, do we really want to go down unwritten rule and like weird baseball territory here? And people were saying that, by the way, when Darvish had like a perfect game going. So I was like, that was very weird. I don't think it was intentional because I don't see that. But if you guys think that, feel free to let me know what you think. But I personally didn't see that. And then last thing, or two last observations from this game that I've been spending a lot of time talking about. One, there was a hit at one point in which from Kike Hernandez, and then Tatis pulled up on a throw after realizing Andy Pages, the Dodgers other base runner, wasn't going for third, and he pulled up in a way that looked like he was like, I wanted to throw that guy out so bad. Like that's what it looked like he had on his mind. So I don't know. And then lastly, good game from Jackson Merrill. In fact, Jackson Merrill has a .423 batting average against the Dodgers in his career so far, which is rad. And like I said, he has a good game in this one, spraying a couple hits. In fact, he goes 3 for 4. Really needed that, and also steals 2 bases. Merrill's just, I don't feel like anyone's complaining. I haven't gotten at least messages back about this, but he's been excellent for a rookie, and he's just hitting a little bit of a wall lately. It's the only thing that's happened with him, but otherwise, he's been fantastic. Moving on, though, to Saturday's game. Let's get into a little bit of the sadness before we get into the ending of whatnot, guys. Let's talk about Game 2 from Saturday, which was the Padres at their worst, unfortunately. Aside from one thing, which was starting pitching in this one. Matt Waldron, who, I love you, Matt. You really came through. You really came through and showed all those people that you were being a little bit hated too much. I know that his ERA in the season is 5.49, but he leaves this game not having given up anything. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, at the time, he hadn't given up anything, right? Right? It's just that he does he did walk Shohei Ohtani, right? He did walk Shohei Ohtani, but then they bring in Adrian Morejon. And it is worth talking about this. Really quickly, though, with Waldron, I want to ask you guys one thing before I get into the breakdown, which is, should they have left him in? I don't think a lot of people brought this up. 82 pitches, he gets taken out. And I do respect that they took him out after he had walked someone, not just taking him out in general, showing, okay, maybe he's losing something, but 6 strikeouts on the day. The knuckleball looked really good. And I just really love this because I had talked about all week that I just thought the hatred towards Matt Waldron was a little bit too much, given that his role is a 5th starter and that his ERA is really bloated because he had an absolute disaster the week before, right? So that's my thing on that. I think Waldron's okay. If they want to try other guys, that's fine. But you know me, I'm really very let the prospects wait. Like, I want to rest. I want to give the prospects more time. Don't just rush them up, because that's what this team tends to do. And Waldron, to me, has not been so bad that I think he should be, like, ejected from the rotation, right? I don't think he's great, but I don't think he's been bad. And this game, unfortunately, I think is a fault of the bullpen. I had tweeted out after this game had ended, James Paxton came into this game with a 5.72 FIP, and the Padres only managed 4 hits off of him. He doesn't walk anybody, gets 4 Ks. You cannot be the get-right start for James Paxton. This guy had been getting lucky all year. His hard hit rate wasn't amazing, and he'd been walking way too many batters. I talked about this on Friday with Jeff, and to not show up is a big deal. Don't get me wrong, the bullpen was a mess here. Adrian Morejon, man, every single time you're starting to believe in this guy, he seems to have a blow up. You know what I mean? And the stuff looks good. Like, for example, let me just read you a stretch. Against Toronto, April 19th, he goes 1 1/3, strikes out 3. And against Colorado, he goes 2 1/3, strikes out 3. Still no runs. Then against Philly, who had been killing us, 3 innings, no runs, strikes out 5. And then what happens? We're all turning attention, right? 3 days later, what happens? 0 2/3, gives up 2 runs. Then has a nice bounce back, does give up, 3 hits against the Cubs, but 1 2/3, 2 strikeouts, no runs. And in this one, he walks 2 batters. They have to take him out. They bring in Santos, makes a mistake to Teoscar Hernandez, big power hitter, takes it for a grand slam, and that's basically the game. Also, in this game, though, shouts to, I mentioned Max Muncy robbing Profar. This is the game he robbed him of a hit potentially that might have brought the Padres back into the game. Just really horrific offensive performance and some poor luck there on the Profar hit. Just not the best weekend for our guy, but even still, there's an incredible play at some point from opposing teams. It happens. This is what's going to happen. In this case, it was from Max Muncy, but man, really rough performance. And I really, no, don't get me wrong, the bullpen did have a bad disaster here, but if you're going up against Paxton, you've got to be better, man. You've got to be better. You cannot let this guy have the best start of his season when he's been getting really lucky all season. And that's unfortunately what they did. And I hate it, and it stinks. But this is a guy who all of his peripherals aren't good. He's not getting a lot of strikeouts. He's giving up decent hard hit stuff. And they just didn't come through. His reckoning will come if he keeps up this stretch, but we'll have to see. Otherwise, just a really poor game that you want to forget from the Padres. The only other thing, I just want to leave again, should they have left Waldron in? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Morejon and all that. Enil De Los Santos, I think he's having the regression that was expected. I still like the guy. I still think he can be an effective reliever, and I think that the beginning of this season wasn't a fluke. I think the problem has been, along with Yuki Matsui, who we'll get into in a little bit, that the bullpen has seemingly all fallen off at the same time. You know what I mean? If you have Matsui who falls off, you got to have Santos and everybody else still performing. So I think that's what's been the problem, is not firing on all cylinders. But again, like I've said many times, unlike last year, when last year was a little bit of a problem with the bullpen, there's just a lot more variables. You've got Morejon, maybe he can become something. You have Jeremiah Estrada, who, by the way, on Sunday's game does make an appearance after Darvish. Or no, he doesn't. He was warming up in the bullpen, though, I swear. By the way, Robert Suarez coming in again. No hits, strikeout on Sunday. But I just think that there's more ways for them to work around it. I think they've got people like Alec Jacob in the minors if they need to go there. You have Estrada called up. I think Wandy Peralta, maybe he can get things going a little bit. He's been quietly not too bad as of late. So, again, I'm not like... the bullpen has been bad, but I'm not freaking out. I'm not freaking out totally. I do think that they can amend it. Last game, though, guys, of course, was Friday. And what a absolute delight was Friday, folks. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. It was so good. Oh, it was so good. This one was a good old-fashioned pitcher's duel on Friday against the Dodgers. Final score of 2-1. I bet you guys know what happened, but Tyler Glasnow in this one, as I talked with Jeff on Friday, I have such a high regard for him, and he is not coming back from a major injury, and he's working his way back. Tyler Glasnow, 7 innings in this one, only 1 hit, 2 walks, 10 Ks. He's got a 2.53 on the season and a 0.86 whip. He was amazing. Padres just couldn't hit the man. They couldn't hit him. He was absolutely amazing. But you know who was even better, ladies and gentlemen? You know who was even better? One Sir Michael King, who doesn't just have a good start, but an elite start and an elite Padres, historically elite Padres start. This coming from Sarah Langs on Twitter, at Slangs on Sports, who does a great job, as everybody might be familiar. Michael King's 8 strikeouts. By the way, he had 8 strikeouts through 3 innings to start this game. Through the first 3 innings of a game in Padres history, tied with some of their best performances. 2021, Blake Snell, 2015 with Tyson Ross, and 2003 with Jake Peavy. Some pretty good company. I know that one of them, not great with Tyson Ross. I still don't know what happened to that, guys. I thought he was going to be amazing, Tyson Ross. I don't know why he fell off so much, but Tyson Ross, Blake Snell, Jake Peavy, those are some big-time performances. And one of the things that I've talked about in this podcast, as I mentioned on Friday as well, so dare I say I had a good weekend. Your boy had a good weekend. You know what I mean? Like, I predicted a decent amount of stuff, so go check out that crossover if you just want to see someone who's just so intellectual and so perfect at analyzing baseball, if you'd like. I'm, of course, kidding. But one of the things I talked about is that this is a guy who gets a lot of whiffs. His changeup is crazy sometimes. And while, yes, the dip in velocity is there, he's been excellent in this game. 7 whiffs on his fastball, 2 on his sweeper, 8 on his changeup. A real put-away pitch for him in this one. Genuinely amazing stuff. Getting guys to swing. Not making the best zone contact percentage in the world, especially on the sinker and the changeup. Just really, really good stuff from Michael King, who I just mentioned that those people next to him. With him, even better than Glasnow, dare I say. 7 innings, only 2 hits. Did walk 3, a little bit of control issues, but made up for it with 11 strikeouts. So a genuine pitcher's duel, and I loved it. Look, here's the thing. Michael King, he can still be good. And I want to give a shout out to someone from a while ago. I forgot who it was, my apologies, but someone had actually left me a comment being like, well, hey, he's still getting used to being a starter. Maybe that's why. And he brought up, hey, that's why the velocity is down. Now, me personally, I think the velocity being down for him did worry me a bit. It did. But they were like, hey, they're still testing him out and whatnot. And I want to give a shout out to the fact that at Too Much Mortons on Twitter had actually tweeted this out. I don't know if I have it anywhere, but if you check on Baseball Savant, his release point, Michael King, was the lowest of any start, I believe, that he's had this season. So there was a tangible difference in how he was delivering those pitches that might have been a tinker. Hey, Ruben Niebla, he can figure things out. And maybe that was the big thing for him. I'm not fully back in. I'm just not. This guy has had a good start. In fact, not too long ago, against the Brewers, I believe it was, after getting hit pretty hard by the Dodgers, giving up all those home runs and whatnot. He then followed that up with a great game against the Brewers, striking out 10, only giving up 1 earned run, and then he followed it up with Rockies, giving up 6 runs, or 4 runs, 6 runs, 6 runs, only 4 earned. My God. So that's my thing. I want to see another start. Not necessarily like this degree where it's historic, but another good start. And then I will be fully back on Michael King. But I'll tell you one thing that is true, and this isn't for debate. The talent is clearly there. So hopefully you can get a lot better because this Padres rotation can need it. But folks, that's not all. It's the Monday News Pod. And more than that, it's the Monday Mailbag Pod, ladies and gentlemen. That means we're going to be answering some of your comments and questions, as well as just giving a couple more thoughts that occurred on that Friday night. We're getting into the good vibes portion of this podcast. But before we get into that moment, guys, I just want to take a second to talk to you about our good friends over at PrizePicks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app in America with more than 3 million members. All you need to do is pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. For example, you want to take over on Tatis hits tomorrow? Maybe you believe. Maybe you're saying, you know what? I think that home run he hit, that absolute nuke, it's a sign it's turning around. Maybe you want to take Bogarts. Maybe you want to take Jake Cronenworth. Maybe you want to take Luis Arraez for over on hits. He seems to be a guy that gets hits all the time. We'll get to him a little bit after this. But regardless of what it is, you've got baseball, you've got NHL playoffs, you've got NBA playoffs. They've got you covered on everything. WNBA is going to be out in a few weeks. I imagine there's something else. What's the other sport that we got in this country? There's probably some soccer stuff out there. I don't know. But whatever you want, guys, Prize Picks has you covered. They've also got like a bunch of like community plays where you can play with guys like Meek Mill and compete against people. You could also check out like different promos they have all the time on this thing. It's really, really cool. And it's very simple too, which I like about it the most. Because sometimes it can be a little bit daunting with all these different stats. What does over under mean? What's a money line? What is parlay? Don't worry. Prize Picks keeps it nice and simple when it comes to daily fantasy sports. So check it out, guys. Go check it out. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that is code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we were in the waning hours, the waning moments of this podcast. It's getting exciting now, isn't it? The really best vibes. We're going to be answering some of your questions, folks. And it's a chunky boy episode, I know, but I think it's deserved for taking a big fat dump on the Dodgers lawn. Well, they were in Petco, so that doesn't apply. I also, speaking of, I asked you guys like if they should have taken out Matt Waldron. Can someone explain to me that video of Dodger fans that were like in a little parade march in San Diego? What? First of all, yeah, not a rivalry. And secondly, what was that? I'm very confused. Like, I was like, why do you guys need to march for it? First of all, I thought that the Padres don't matter and we're just so beneath you. Like, I just don't understand. I was like, this is really weird. I was like, what's going on here? Like, you guys are on top. You don't have to do these marching things. Like it's like when people do the men's rights activism stuff like that. You'll see, like, we need a men's rights day. It's like, well, every day is kind of... Anyway, sorry, my apologies. Don't mean to bring in politics, but I just thought that was a weird moment. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. And apologies for the political slip on my part. There was more, though, that occurred in this game, guys. First of all, let me just say, had a playoff atmosphere vibe to it. Most of the weekend did, particularly on Friday night. I mean, it's a Friday night, what can I say? And Saturday night, by the way, most attended game, I believe, in Petco Park history. So shouts to some of the Dodgers fans that showed up for that one. But really did have an electricity to it. I don't know if it's just me. I know this sounds like a cliche, but it did have a playoff kind of atmosphere to it. Not a lot of hits in this one, though. Not a lot of hits in this one. In fact, the only one that gets a hit, aside from our hero, is one Sir Luis Campusano, 2 for 3 in this game from him with an RBI. He hits a home run, which gets the scoring started in this one in the bottom of the third inning. And then you basically get nothing for a while. And then you get a sacrifice fly from Freddie Freeman. And then that was basically it. But let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, some amazing defense by the Padres. Ha-Seong Kim turned an incredible double play in this one that barely nabbed out the runner. He needs a little bit of some praise there. As I mentioned in the first segment, the defense is amazing. This is why he's valued so high. The defense just doesn't seem to leave him. It's amazing. Even when he's hitting below average for an MLB hitter, the guy's still valuable. That's what wins above replacement tells us. Amazing stuff from Ha-Seong Kim. Starting off the bottom of the ninth, Luis Campusano getting a double. Doesn't it feel great that we have a catcher that can like hit? Isn't that amazing? Isn't that just absolutely wild that that's like a thing? Really good stuff from our guy. By the way, 121 WRC plus on the season, or actually 118 on the season after yesterday's game. But that's amazing for a catcher. And it's only going to continue to age as the rest of the stats for some other catchers start to come down to earth. But if he could get the defense just a little bit better, that'd be great. Although I feel like I've seen some improvements lately. But anyway, he gets the double. And then Luis Arraez walking it off. I want you all to... Here's another thing. So I asked you guys, Matt Waldron, should they have taken him out? I asked you, what was the deal behind that Dodgers video of them marching or whatever? Last thing I got for y'all, how many times did you watch that Luis Arraez walk off? Just be honest. Be honest. How many times did you watch it? Because I watched it way too many times before going to bed. Probably because it was a Friday, so I didn't have to get up for anything in the morning. But let me tell you, wow. Just wow. What a walk-off win for the Padres. You love to see it very, very much. I had tweeted that, Arraez is not only a superhero, but also a celestial god of divine joy and happiness, and I stand by it. I stand by it. Not only do you get Michael King's great start, but Luis Arraez already canonizing himself a saint and becoming a Padres legend just like that. Seriously, just like that. He's already had some great moments for the team, and it just feels like he's already earned the fan base, and that's hard to do. But for you to be a player like him who's not necessarily going to do it through flashy, home runs and extra base hits, but good old-fashioned like 1960s baseball with just singles and getting on base, and that's something that this lineup needed. I love having a player like Arraez in high-leverage situations because I know he's going to put bat to ball. I love that, and that's what this team needs. Someone who's meat and potatoes and going to come through. Other teams, no, I don't think Arraez would be as great for them. Other teams are probably going to need some home run power and whatnot, but not this Padres team because of the steps that Tatis, Cronenworth, Profar, Merrill, Campizano, all these guys have had, and hopefully Machado and Bogarts down the line. That's why he's been so great. Getting the walk-off, already being a legend. Your first game going 4 for 4. Then you have a walk-off, like just great stuff from Arraez. Absolutely love it. I really like the depth of this Padres lineup a lot. But folks, we're going to close this episode out. A very long, chunky boy episode, but I think you guys don't mind because it's a celebratory episode on us beating the Dodgers. So I don't think you guys mind as much. But let me just take a second, guys, to read and answer some of the questions that y'all sent in and comments. Firstly, though, let's read a couple comments. We got some from YouTube this past weekend. This one I just want to read because I have no idea what this was. At Paul Byrne 2929 says, "Go Cardinals. Cubbies could sell tickets at their worst with Harry Carey. Sing it, old boy, the run and gun boys are coming." What? Moving on. I just wanted to highlight that to give you guys just a reminder. I have no idea what's going on with YouTube sometimes with the comments that we get. Next question. At Tony Sue 8860, Michael King might step up any game. Like practically every other Padre, he's got upside and has stuff to work on. In Michael King's case, in my opinion, he pitches like an inexperienced reliever, which is mostly his history. He's been starting for only a very short time. Veteran starters don't get pulled the second they look like they're losing their effectiveness. They're expected to adjust to what the batters are doing to him. Michael King doesn't seem to have that extra gear and isn't adjusting with runners on base. It looks like he keeps pitching the same way, and that's why his games go downhill so fast. When Michael King figured this out and developed this extra gear, he become a solid number 3 starter, maybe better. Just want to give a shout out to Tony Sue on the YouTube comments because you might have foreseen things. Forget Tony Sue. It was Tony Nostradamus Sue. I'm sorry, I tried. But anyway, shouts to you. Great point. And as I mentioned earlier, someone else who had left that comment being like, hey, he needs some time maybe. You know what I mean? And maybe I made a mistake being like, I saw what Seth Lugo did last year, where he was transitioning from being a reliever to a starting pitcher, and he kind of transitioned pretty well. And actually, he had an amazing start against the Royals, or for the Royals yesterday. I think he had 12 strikeouts. So, yeah, I wouldn't mind having him instead of Waldron. That much you guys could get me to cop on. But that's not all, folks. We got a couple more comments. This next one coming from one Sir. This is just the wildest thing I've ever seen. At Michael Lee 9411. Consider trading Waldron, Brito, Bogarts. First of all, I just want to say at the very beginning of this, you guys probably know what I'm thinking, which is, I love what people say. Take all of our bad players in a trade. You know what I mean? I love that. But anyway, I just wanted to read this one for you guys. And add 2 to 3 San Diego farm prospects and $15 million for Xander's incisive sweetener contract deal to Miami. Should make a nice trade package for more pitching. And when it comes to July-August deadline for trades, if Kim is still hitting to 210 to 230, should the Padres make the trade from another starting pitcher? First of all, I just find it so funny how many comments I get about trading Kim when everyone yelled at me for suggesting the idea in the preseason. Just saying. And when it comes to that, I can say 2 to 3 farm prospects and Xander Bogaerts and pitcher Waldron and pitcher Brito and send them to Miami for Rogers, Hoeing, Tanner Scott, Luzardo. Trading 6 Padres for 4 Miami Marlins. 3 from the San Diego farm, number 80, number 60 on the top 100, and 3 current, Waldron, Brito, and Xander, including $15 million of Xander Bogaerts' contract to the Marlins. Your thoughts? Padres need a lot of new pitchers ASAP. I disagree with almost quite literally everything you said. First of all, I think the idea that you're going to get any team to bite on Xander Bogaerts' contract right now is absurd, and it feels like the same thing that some Padres fans said about Hosmer. Like, let's just get rid of him. I don't want to dump value and farm system guys to get rid of a bad contract. I just don't want to. I just don't want to do it. Although it is looking like a really disaster contract. Nobody's going to want Johnny Brito. No, that's actually not true. Some people might want Johnny Brito. Matt Waldron and Johnny Brito do not have that much value, and I don't want to dip into the farm. And no, I don't think the Padres need pitching that badly. And again, none of the major league players that were offered in this hypothetical trade are being coveted by teams right now. I can guarantee you that much. At least if you want to attach Bogarts to it. You could probably swing King, or not King, Brito and Waldron, and then prospects. That makes more sense. No one's taking on the Bogarts deal. It's just not happening. And then you can't also say you want to trade Kim, because then, well, who our middle infield is going to be? We're just rocking Luis Arraez. He's pretty bad defensively. So, just keep that in mind. But no, I'm not going to buy it on it. And especially not the Marlins, who are notoriously cheap and just do not have the payroll to be able to fit, even if you paid for $13 million of whatever, I think 25, 27 million or so that Xander Bogaerts makes. It's just not going to happen. So I think that that's absurd. And I disagree with the notion that the Padres need pitching. I know that you made this comment a few days before, when it was only Cease that had, turned on as a starting pitcher. I don't think they need pitching that badly. I think the pitching that the Padres need could come from the farm in places like Snelling and Adam Mazur. Relief pitchers as well, like Alec Jacob, who we've talked about. I think the bullpen can be made better. And I think the type of moves that they need to make are those small sort of moves that they can make at the deadline, where there will be plenty of relievers available that have been pretty good. It doesn't have to be Mason Miller of the Oakland A's, who reportedly want Jackson Merrill in return, which I'm not doing and the Padres aren't doing. So I disagree with that notion that the Padres badly needed starting pitching. I don't think so. And by the way, everyone needs pitching. So I think you have to sort it by categories. I think the Padres are in like that second category where it's like another nice, middling back end starter. Maybe they could look for that, but I don't think they're dying for pitching. They're just not. Not in my opinion anyway. But of course, that's not it for questions, guys. This one comes from It's Grant Jordan on Twitter. Love the answer you gave for that one. I have another for next Monday. As I watch the team play, I've noticed that several players, namely Tatis, Bogaerts, and Machado, have a serious lack of plate discipline. Do you see this as a potentially recurring problem, or just a handful of guys that are pressing too hard? Would love to see the Pods work deeper into counts, especially against starters. Thanks again for always putting out quality content. I love listening to the show at work to spice up my day. Thank you, Grant. I know you messaged me a couple times about that. For any of you who I liven up your days, some of the boring, like drag through life, all that type of stuff, means a lot to me. Really, like every time you guys say and send out nice comments, I appreciate it. So back to the question though from Grant. Great question. I think I see it with Tatis and I've seen it with Machado. Bogaerts, not necessarily. I think Bogaerts just isn't hitting the ball well at all. And I think there's a difference when it comes to plate discipline versus whatnot. I'm not just talking about the walk rate. I don't think Bogaerts is like chasing or swinging at really bad pitches necessarily. I just think he's not making good contact because he's been falling apart and has been a bad player. I do see it with Tatis and Machado. Tatis, I feel like presses a little bit too much, which I've said, I think recently on the podcast, where I'm wondering if he can reach that MVP level, not good level, but the MVP level. And it feels like sometimes he might be aiming too much for home run. And Machado has had these moments where he swings on the first pitch and it's a pop-up. In yesterday's game, actually, it was runner on base, 1 out, hit a weak pop-up to the catcher on, I believe, the first or second pitch. And it was like, dang, he had a moment early on in the year when it was, I think it was against the Dodgers. Guy couldn't throw strikes, bases loaded, and Machado swings at the first pitch, and it's an out. I do think that Machado has had a little bit of a plate discipline wrong problem. And what we talked about is one of the things about Machado that made him so good is that he's a guy who hits for power, and he's got a great walk-to-strikeout ratio. So, like, literally one of the best walk-to-strikeout ratios in baseball prior to last year. Like one of the best. And he's been striking out more and not walking as much. So I am wondering with the plate discipline. I think that's a great point. With Tatis, I think it's a little bit of luck, and I think he's trying to do too much. But I do agree with you. With those guys sometimes, I'm like, what's going on here? Y'all doing all right? You know what I mean? Like, it feels like you guys are making some mistakes here at the plate where they're just not swinging at the best pitches and they're forcing things as if they're trying to hit their way in a grand fashion out of a slump rather than just taking what's given to them, getting your singles, getting your doubles, just getting your walks sometimes even. It just feels like they have not been all that great in that area. Not too much, I don't think. I wonder what you guys think, though. But thank you so much, Grant, for the question. Got to move on to another one because we got a couple more. And by the way, in terms of high leverage situations, though, I will give you this. Machado hitting 200. Tatis is hitting 417. in high leverage situations according to Fangraphs this year. So at least Tatis, while he is pressing sometimes, has still been able to come through. By the way, Campy's on a 300 high leverage. Shouts to you, my man. I love that very much. Next question, though, from listeners, ladies and gentlemen. This one coming from Rama Murdy, longtime listener of the show. Question: what should be our realistic expectations for the rest of the May schedule? Braves and Yankees look vulnerable, and the Reds are struggling, and Rockies and Marlins should be beatable. Love to hear your thoughts. When it comes to team schedule, I don't know. I don't think this is like football, where it's a strength of schedule thing. I don't think so. But in terms of upcoming, it is very nice that they've got the Rockies next. Wish it was at Coors, kind of, just because it's always like fantastic, ridiculous fun. But this is the type of series you got to win. The Rockies, for some reason, have played the Padres way too well over these last few years. They had a losing record against the Rockies every year except last year. And it's hilarious because last year they were still bad against everybody else, so it was kind of rendered a moot point. And then they've got the Braves, then the Reds and the Yankees, and then the Marlins, and then the Royals. So it's like kind of very up and down in terms of team quality. But to me, I don't think strength of schedule is as big a thing in baseball as it is for football. Football is a big thing with the strength of schedule. But for me, you definitely got to beat the bad teams, right? Maybe you split against the Braves. You just got to be competitive. Same thing goes for the Yankees. I wish I could see the Yankee game too. I wish it was in New York because I'd definitely go. But, you know, they're facing some bad teams in the Rockies, which is great, and the Marlins, and some fringe teams like the Reds and Royals, who I don't know fully about. But I don't know. We'll have to see. But bottom line is they are winning. They've only had 3 losses this month. That's awesome. That's what I like to see. So keep it up, Padres. Keep it up. Last question, though, comes from another longtime friend of the podcast, Glenn Auto Apologist. My guy Josh on Twitter said, non-Padre related question. What got you to fall in love with baseball, as well as why you enjoy covering it? Thanks, Javi. Great question. And I like these type of questions, by the way. So first of all, let me answer the easy one, which is what got me to cover it. What got me to cover it is that I was bored during the pandemic. Some dude from Canada, his name is Sean Woodley. He hosts Locked On Raptors. Everyone go say hi to him if you want on Twitter. And he hired me because he posted on Twitter, and I just saw it. Someone retweeted it. I forgot who. I think it was Duncan Smith, an NBA writer, who is a Pistons fan on Twitter, who retweeted it saying, hey, we're looking for hosts. And I had done a lot of baseball stuff in college, talked about the Yankees a bit, talked about the Mets with many of the different fan base, like fans from my school. They would come on the show and talk about it, talked about football a lot, including my Chargers. Sorry, I forgot this is a Padres podcast, but, I like talking sports a lot, as well as movies and pop culture. That's what I did on my radio show in college. And that's why I wanted to do it. So I was like, yeah, sure. So then I started covering them, and then the rest is history, right? And in terms of what got me to fall in love with baseball, that's a great question. I think that the cliche is that, like, my dad or my mom, I didn't grow up in a household it was mostly nerd world. That's where I come from with my family, especially on my dad's side. But the one thing my parents did love is they loved baseball. Like, that was the one thing. Maybe it's because us Puerto Ricans, we love baseball. Like, that's what we're good at, I guess, right? Maybe that's what it is. But I grew up that way. I grew up a Yankees fan formerly. And I think what made me like it is just how I just like the team building. I love how many things you need. In the NBA, sometimes if you just got Luka Doncic, you're going to be great. Or if you got Jokic, you're going to be great. Or you got Anthony Edwards, you're going to be great. In football, you need a lot of pieces, but if you get the quarterback, you're like 70, 80% of the way done, right? For baseball, I kind of liked that there's so many different aspects of it, that there's different kinds of players. You don't have to be a certain height or a certain weight. You don't have to throw a certain way. It just feels like you can get a little bit of everything. I think that's what made me fall in love with baseball. It was just kind of my first sport. And I play catch with my dad sometimes. That's the one that we understand. So my parents understood baseball culture and whatnot. So I think that's what it is. And also played some decent video games. Mario Baseball when I was a kid. That certainly helped a little bit. And I just didn't understand the other sports as much that I'm a bigger fan of now. But I'd say that's what it is. The team building aspect of it, I love. I love that you could have the best player like in the world and still not make the playoffs. I think that's actually kind of cool in its own way. That you really need everything. I don't know. I just think that's really cool. So I think that's what it was, man. Glenn Out Apologist Josh on Twitter. Thank you for the question. And guys, we've been going super long on this episode, way too long, in fact. So gotta wrap it up, ladies and gentlemen. That about does it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast. The only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO. Enjoy the victory over the Dodgers. It was fantastic. I hope you all had a fantastic weekend. We will be back to game recaps covering this Rockies series and maybe potentially some crossovers. I don't know. Maybe we got to do a little bit of a crossover. They do play the Atlanta Braves this weekend. So maybe my man Jake from Locked On Braves, maybe we'll hit him up as well. But until next time, guys, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. My Fire Faithful homies, take care.